Welcome to the Full Experience, a Cordkillers show where we watch the first, ultimate, lowest, and last episode of a television series to get kind of like a slice of the entire experience in 4 episodes. We have been watching The Wire, and we are up to the lowest rated episode of The Wire, season 2, episode 1, Ebb Tide, first aired June 1st, 2003. I'm Tom Merritt. He's Brian Brushwood.
Dude, Tom, I'm going to give you the floor because I am too deep in The Wire soup. Like I've got through last week all of season 1 of The Wire, and then I had to jump forward in time for the ultimate episode in season 3.
Right.
But now I just went back to resuming my regular habits, and of course I drifted right across season 2, episode 1. And I have thoughts within the context of watching everything straightforward chronologically. Sure. What was it like for you seeing it in isolation, besides the fact that you were totally wrong and you talked me into your theory about the boats?
I was totally wrong about McNulty. It's my second note here, is that McNulty seems upset. And of course, across the episode Ebb Tide, you find out that McNulty definitely did not want to be on the boat, and he blames the sergeant for passing along the information that he did not want to be on the boat. It is a nice tie-in to episode 1 in a lot of ways. In fact, it's really interesting to watch these out of order because there were tie-ins to episode 1 still in season 3 when we watched the highest rated episode. And I think it's just a testament to how consistent The Wire is, that you are seeing how these tie-ins to these episodes that are separated by multiple episodes. But yeah, it felt like, oh, we are picking up the story of episode 1, where Avon has been thrown in jail. We get the classic line, if you get your mind right, you only do 2 days, the day you go in, the day you go out. But you are still seeing Stringer operating the system. You see that the folks who were resisting the investigation have won. They put Avon behind bars, and then they busted up the team, which we know from watching the season 3 episode, the team's going to come back together. But yeah, I thought this was a really strong episode for being the lowest rated. And the only thing I can think of is the fact that we went from a big season 1, a huge finale with Avon Barksdale getting thrown in jail, and then we go to season 2, and you're introducing an entirely new slate of characters. You're on the docks. You're not in the projects as much. You're not in the office of the police as much. McNulty's on a boat. Like I can remember that being very disorienting. And I think that's probably why this episode gets ranked so low, because people are just discomfited by it. But we all know it's going to pay off in the end. At least now. So
your experience, as being a stone skipping across The Wire, this felt like no solid episode. I don't see why it was unfairly maligned for being this low.
It didn't seem like it was a drop off in quality from the other 2 episodes we've watched. And granted, just full disclosure, I watched the entire Wire twice through already in the past, but I'm not watching all of them now like Brian is. And Stringer drinking like Lipton tea in the funeral home, and there's still lots of those little pieces that give it cinema verite. Watching those boys get up in the morning after being out at that bar made my head hurt with a hangover. Like, it's just too realistic. And I felt the cold. I remember smoking outside and when I was in college in Illinois, and that cold, and when they were smoking outside. So I don't know. I was like, I'm not saying this was the greatest episode of The Wire by any stretch, but I don't know that you would show this to me and I would immediately go, oh, that's a really bad episode.
So my theory going into this was, I'm going to bet that it's a good episode that was unfairly maligned for all the reasons that we outlined. I was unprepared. Like, I was steeled for, hey, but because I had just binged all of season 1 and I finally was like infected with the groove of The Wire, I was surprised, genuinely surprised at how agonizing it was to have all of that taken away from me and to get just little eye droplets of anything that I wanted out of watching The Wire. And the petulant sleepy toddler in my heart was like, I don't want to see a bunch of white people in a union. I want to see drug dealers.
So you re-experienced the original feeling, it sounds like. That's amazing.
And it was actually harsh this time. And also Ziggy is next level, supernaturally unlikable.
Yeah.
Like the casting is brilliant. The actor is brilliant because they cast him because he's got those serpentine villainous angles on his face and his gangly coward's manner, his total forgive my cursing, dipshit demeanor. He is so agonizingly, eminently punchable from the gates of this season. And spoiler alert, he remains that way for a good 5 episodes before he has a remotely sympathetic scene. Like they hammer it like a drumbeat that you just want to throttle and kill this walking toothpick of a human. I was miserable looking at his punchable face in that first episode. However, I'm now 2/3 of the way through season 2, and there is no possible way that season 2 is this amazing without brutally punishing the viewer with that particular episode. Like, just like a good author, there's a series of Stephen King books in which you get through the first book totally confused and off kilter, but amazed by the bigness of this particular world and one particular character. And then the very next book, just as you're starting to really dig this character, they just brutalize him and take away an aspect of the character that you liked most about him. And it ends up being the most important thing for the rest of the series of books. That's what this is doing. If you're familiar with Stephen King's The Dark Tower, think of the opening scene of book 2, the drawing of the 3, and how awful that was after finally liking the main character. That's what you go through in the beginning of season 2 of The Wire. Does that parallel land for you, Tom?
Yeah, no, that works. That totally works because you are going to have the same payoff. And granted, not everybody likes the Dark Tower series, but there's enough that are that I think it is a pay. It's fair to call it a payoff of like, you're not going to like it. You're going to have to suffer through it. And I remember suffering through it in the Dark Tower series. And I remember suffering through it the first time I watched The Wire. But it will pay off. And it's good to hear that you still feel like it pays off. Even this, what is it? Your 3rd or 4th time through?
This is only my 2nd full watch through, I believe.
It is. Okay. I thought you'd gone through it more than once. Yeah. So I also loved the parallel to season 1, episode 1 that I'd never noticed before, which is season 1, episode 1 is McNulty going beyond what he needs to do for a comfortable life because he just can't stop himself from trying to solve a problem, but he's also partially motivated by revenge, right? In season 1, it's, man, I don't love that Stringer Bell has been rubbing it in my face, and I know this wasn't my case, but I'm done with it, and I'm going to go beyond what is good for me and try to get them to bring him down, and Avon Barksdale, and they bring down Barksdale. This episode, it's, I know that it would be best for me to just let the other county take the murder, but I don't know that they'll do a good job. And I really want to get back at the sergeant for passing along that I want to be on the boat. So I'm going to fax the details to the county so that they can push this back. And then McNulty gets to work on it.
McNulty continues to operate from the sidelines, and it's really fascinating this season. I believe it's episode 6 or 7 before he finally joins the detail, and he tries to just put his head down and fly right, but you see him spiral painfully out of control because he just is built he's built to be a cop, a good cop. And in fact, I just got to the episode where Bunk, makes the plea to bring him in, and he says, look, he's a garbage human being, but when he's on a case, he's still a garbage of a human being. But when he's on a good case, that is the closest to a functioning, rational adult that McNulty comes, and we need him on this. And it's as tortuous as that 6 episodes were to watch him, to watch the creators abuse one of my favorite characters. It does pay off when he finally joins. Also, in the chat, Paulus points out this is the first thing he ever saw Amy Ryan in. Amy Ryan was the love interest on The Office. I've seen her in a bunch of other stuff too. What a adorable kind of inauspicious open beginning for her on The Wire as the doc cop,
as the friendly doc cop who busts the balls of Sobotka. And they're like, why do you let her talk to you? Like, she's fine. It was such a cozy little atmosphere there. Speaking of cozy, you saw her recently on Only Murders in the Building.
I did. As a matter of fact, I had to. It was so distracting. I was like, where did I just see her? That I had to go down an IMDb rabbit hole.
Yeah. The only other note I had on this was when they were driving that van to Philadelphia, it really, really became a period piece for me to be like, oh yeah, they don't have ways,
Right?
They can't get rerouted around anything. They can't show Stringer like, this is the route we took. It's in Google Maps. Like, it's all back of the envelope. Are we supposed to turn here? No, let's take this exit. Man, I've forgotten what that was like.
Yeah. This episode, the lowest rated one, is so season 1, you begin, everybody's a stranger on day 1, right? But at the end of season 1, it's like, oh, we're a graduating class. Season 2, episode 1 is the first time, I'm going to mix my metaphors here, that they make you go to the gym, where it's like, oh, no. Sorry, you have to get up and you have to do squats. And you're like, but I'm sore and I don't want to. Like, that's what the show is. And then sure enough, you get through season 2 and you're like, okay, I know who everyone is. The main character is the city, not any one person. And then, beginning of season 3, it's like, sorry, dude. And you're like, squats. And you're like, yeah, we're doing squats.
Yeah. No, it further convinces me that my theory that, there is no such thing as a good or bad episode, really. It's all about what we bring to it is more true than I thought, because watching these out of order, this is a perfectly great episode. I came into it with no expectation. I came into it with no attachments to a previous storyline because we're coming back in time. That's one of the benefits that the full experience provides us, is just freedom from expectation. And I enjoyed it quite a bit much better. And it's very interesting to hear that you were coming to it, in the groove, in the way it was supposed to be presented, and therefore, had those attachments to the previous storyline that kind of gets in the way of this otherwise good episode, I think.
Well, as a matter of fact, it was so blinding that the loss of, it was like having a limb chopped off. It was like the loss of all these characters was all I could see. It wasn't until many episodes later that I began to realize what a visually rich set piece the docks are, from the parts that have fallen into disrepair to the, to the different shots of the harbor, the wide open spaces, so different from the street corners and the claustrophobia that we experienced inside the projects and in the decayed streets. I mean, it's great. It's a great show.
The other thing that occurred to me when I was watching that too, and it's a very subtle point made. At one point, you just see a sign, "Coming soon condos." And another point, there's an offhand comment like, if we don't figure this out, they're just going to tear it down and make it into condos. Usually the narrative is, we're going to build a set of condos here. It's great development and will be good for the city. And the opposition is, it's gentrification. It's only for the rich. This is the real perspective, in my opinion, which is neither of those. It's, you are wasting an opportunity out of incompetence and therefore defaulting to handing it over to the condo developer because you can't figure out what else to do with it. When what you could do is dredge the channel, or I can't remember the other option, but either one of them will
dredge the channel or open up another pier or something.
Either one of them will increase the utility and the productivity of the docks. But because the docks don't have suction as much, right? They don't always get what they need.
Yeah. Man, I want to keep talking about stuff that comes up later. Probably to nobody's surprise, there's a scene later on where the Union boys are all brought into a room to watch the future. Behold the future. Look at what Amsterdam's doing. And the movie is like, robots do everything. No slippage or loss. Everything is accounted for. And the Union boys are like, oh, screw this.
That sounds not like a thing I want. Yeah. Well, that is season 2, episode 1, Ebb Tide. And in full experience tradition, we're jumping right to the end for the last episode. So no season 4 episodes, which is interesting in The Wire because each season is a different aspect of the story, as well as continuing the story. But we're going right to the end of season 5, episode 10, 30. And the name comes from the practice in journalism back in the day of using the number 30 with dashes to mark the end of a story. So the typesetters knew, oh, okay, we're at the end. I don't have anything else to typeset.
Well, one last tidbit for anybody who's watching The Wire for the first time. Season 2, I noticed it a lot when the gang, the team are all together. There's a lot of shots where it's like, wow, they're all really crowded around that table close. And then I kind of squinted and I imagined the two sides being cut out of the picture. And I'm like, they're perfectly framed in 4/3 with safe space on the side.
Yeah, exactly. That is it for the full experience lowest ranked episode. You can get these episodes early if you join us at patreon.com/Cordkillers, and you get a little bit of a voice on what we pick next. We'll be talking about that in After Talk, which you also get as a patron. Join us again next time for the last episode of The Wire, season 5, episode 10, 30. I'll talk to you then.